Hello. I'm gonna wait a little while and see if we have a few people to show up. If not, it's okay. I'm just gonna get on here and talk to y'all, and you can tune in later. It is 2 o'clock Eastern. I have I have a little wind blowing on me from a fan because it's rather warm today. So that's why my hair is blowing all around. Just gonna wait and see. I'll probably wait 2 minutes and see. Hello, Sandy. Hi. I don't know if anybody knows this, but live chat. I have to keep refreshing the live chat, which I'm not sure why it does that. Why won't it just stay on there? I don't know, but that's kind of what it does. That's what the live do, and I can just keep going back until I can read it. And so far we have just one person. My friend Sandy is on. I've got my glasses. I usually don't wear my reading glasses, but I've got lots of notes in my composition pad, and I want to be able to read them. So I've got my reading glasses on. Plus, I can see better, like how many people we have on and their comments or questions. So I might have to turn that fan off. It's kind of bothering me, but it feels so good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna wait just a little bit longer. I'm trying to decide whether I want to turn the fan off. Let's see. Maybe that's better. It's 2:02. I can help with the fan. Oh good. And oops. And that is, oh, and that's still Sandy. Yeah, we still have just one person. I'm gonna wait until I have more than one person on here. That I do value Sandy for sure. Here we go. There's North Dakota Carnivore. Okay, Lance. All right, then I'm gonna start. So the title of today's talk is the 7 myths of type 1 diabetes. And I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 55 years ago and a bit. And I'll be 72 in July. And that's about it. I have a disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I'm not a nurse. I am a health coach. That's it. And an experienced type 1 diabetic who has been paying attention for a long time. With health, I've been doing research for about 55 years, the whole time I've been type 1. So, but I will say that none of what I'm going to say today is in any form a recommendation. I'm not recommending any of this to you. It's just for information and educational purposes only, and no recommendations at all. And again, I'm just a health coach, not a medical professional. So that's my disclaimer. Now, the reason I decided to do this talk today, the 7 myths of type 1 diabetes, was because I listened to hi Paul, I listened to a live with Dr. Ken Berry and his wife Nisha. And Nisha is a nurse. She's been a nurse for a long time, and Dr. Ken Berry has been a family practicing physician for a long time. And they were discussing the myths of, they just called it diabetes, but mostly 98% of their talk was about type 2 diabetes. And I'm very careful with differentiating the two main types of diabetes, type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And I'll give you a quick definition. This type 1 diabetes is when your beta cells all die from, well, we're going to get into the reasons later, but for right now it's mostly because they believe an autoimmune condition. And then type 2 diabetes is related to insulin resistance and how insulin has a hard time getting into the cells and helping glucose get into the cells. So they both result in high blood sugars, but they're not the same disease at all, and they both are called diabetes. So it's very confusing. So basically, there's a lot of misunderstanding about both types, and that's why we have to get on here on YouTube and explain them all, because they're very confusing. So that is why the reason I'm doing this is that it's in my first myth. So number one, first myth. You are born with type 1 diabetes. The reason this is number one, this is my first myth, is because in the video that I was talking about with Dr. Berry and Nisha happened to say, well, to differentiate that they were talking about type 2 and just say, well, type 1 diabetes, you're born with it. And I knew right away that she was wrong. You're not born with it. And I was surprised that Ken Berry did not correct her. But so I looked it up, even though I knew for a fact that you are not born with it. I was not born with it. I was diagnosed when I was 16. Other type 1 diabetics are diagnosed at any time during life. It's just when your beta cells die for one reason or another. And I looked up the CDC quote, type 1 diabetes is generally considered a condition that develops rather than present at birth. There is no data showing it in newborns. So it's developed later in life. I have heard of babies getting it at just a few months old. One of my favorite Instagram accounts is Bane, type 1 diabetes, and he was diagnosed at 12 months old. So you can get it when you're very young, but you're not necessarily born with it. Plus, not everybody who's a type 1 diabetic has antibodies, which means it would be in your genes. I don't have any antibodies for type 1 diabetes, even though I was diagnosed 55 years ago at age 16. So that was myth number one. You are born with type 1 diabetes. That's not true. Myth number two, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. Now, this is considered common knowledge, but I will say that there are many people who believe that the term autoimmune disease is incorrect. that there is no reason why your body would attack itself. Now, autoimmune disease means that your body attacks a certain part of it. In type 1 diabetes case, it attacks the beta cells just because it wants to, or just because it's upset with something. Well, many people, I'll include Dr. Anthony Chaffee, believes that the theory of autoimmune disease is wrong. Yes. Oh, no. Okay, I'm sorry. I am. I don't think Lance is. So I think that your body is not attacking your beta cells. I think there's other things attacking your beta cells, which means that there's a list of possible causes of type 1 diabetes, and these causes could be different for different people. And I think there's a lot of different causes, and but they all result in death of beta cells. Environmental toxins like toxins in the water, or toxins in the air or atmosphere. Viruses. A lot of people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after they've been sick with the flu or a virus. And there's a specific virus that happened 6 years ago that quite a few people were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after that virus. Drug side effects, certain drugs. In my case, I believe that I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after I took tetracycline, a very powerful antibiotic for my acne when I was 15, and I was diagnosed a year later. I took it for about a year. Some people get a form of strep throat, and then they were diagnosed. Oops, let's see if I can read this comment. No, I am not. Oh, okay. All right, that's just talking with each other, so I'll leave that. My friend Sue Surface, she's a nurse, and she actually took care of 2 people in the emergency room in her hospital that had been on their honeymoon on a tropical island where they developed an illness on their honeymoon, and when they came back, they were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So lots of different reasons, and none of them, I don't believe, are autoimmune diseases. And I will say one more thing, but I don't want to put a lot of attention on it because it's very controversial. But there's certain vaccines that parents have said their child got the vaccine and then they were diagnosed soon after. I'm not going to give that any attention right now, though. Okay, so that was number 2. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and it's not. Type 3, number 3 myth. Type 1 diabetes absolutely cannot be reversed. Now, this is a biggie. It's big. Most type 1 diabetics are very sensitive about this topic because we've known for many years that type 2 diabetes can be reversed if you clean up your diet. Maybe you go low carb or carnivore in your diet, and you get more exercise and you lose weight, then your type 2 diabetes can be reversed. But we've known for many years that type 1 diabetes cannot. Your beta cells are dead, and that's it. But now we have a huge huge type 1 diabetic social media community, right? I know thousands, not personally, but thousands of type 1 diabetics at my fingertips through different Facebook groups. And I've had, so there's a woman who is from New Zealand. Her name is Rachel Chalmers from New Zealand. She has a type 1 diabetic Facebook group called NZ Carnivores. NZ Carnivores. It's the name New Zealand Carnivores. NZ Carnivores. And she had several conditions, one of which was a diagnosed case of type 1 diabetes. She had been taking insulin for 13 years, and her husband heard about the carnivore diet and people clearing up a lot of different conditions on the carnivore diet. So they decided to do it. So Rachel started eating only fatty meat, mostly lamb and beef, and her insulin requirements started to drop, and then they started dropping more and more, and after 5 months, she no longer needed insulin. Her other conditions, which she called autoimmune conditions, what can I say? A lot of them cleared up too. Now, the reason why a lot of type 1 diabetics cannot heal is that they don't have an active disease. It struck, it killed the beta cells, they're dead, that's it. And in her case, I think that because her diseases were still so active, that they were able to heal and the beta cells were able to be regenerated. It's a very rare case, but it did happen. And then there are a few other people who are in, we have a type 1 diabetic carnivores group on Facebook with over 3,000 members. And there's also a healing type 1 diabetes Facebook group that has, I should have looked. I think there's about 1,000 members on that one. It's not as big as the carnivore group. So there's a woman, her name is Julianne Sleep, like good night sleep. That's her name. And she developed type 1 diabetes later. I believe she might have been over 60, and she developed it and had to take insulin, and it was definitely diagnosed, but then she found the carnivore diet, and she went on the carnivore diet, and a few months, her type 1, she no longer needed insulin. And then Dr. Chafee, who I've already mentioned once, Dr. Anthony Chafee, you can look him up. I heard him in a recent podcast on Dr. Kiltz's channel just the other day, and I've heard it before, but he mentioned it again, so you can look that one up. That he treated 2 people, I believe they were both women, who had been newly diagnosed as type 1 diabetic, and they went on a strict carnivore diet, and they were able to get off of all their insulin. So these cases that I've mentioned are very rare and don't usually happen. I've been trying to heal type 1 diabetes for about 48, 50 years, and I'm still taking insulin. So it doesn't mean that just because there are a few examples of the type 1 being reversed, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to do that. But I didn't want to leave them out, and it means that this is a myth, that it can possibly be reversed. But like I said, I've been working at it for about 50 years. Now my insulin requirements are very low. I only need about 8 to 10 units of insulin per day. Even last night, I didn't take any overnight insulin, which is very unusual. So, I still have hope. Just saying. Okay, so where are we? That was number 3. Type 1 diabetes absolutely cannot be reversed. That's myth number 3. Myth number 4. Type 1 diabetics need carbohydrates to grow healthfully. Now, this is usually when you have a child who's a type 1 diabetic who's been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and the doctors and dietitians tell the parents that you need to feed your child carbohydrates in order for them to grow up and be healthy and strong. Now, there's a type 1 grit on Facebook. It's called Type 1 Grit, and that's a whole Facebook group of thousands of people, many of them parents of young children, who follow Dr. Bernstein's approach. And Dr. Bernstein taught 30 grams of carbs or less per day. And the kids on there, because their blood sugars are such a good level, that they grow up, many of them are athletes, very strong and beautiful children. So, and then there's also people, I myself have been 0 carb for almost 8 years, and I am doing great, and I don't need carbohydrates at all. Now, the reason partly that people say this also is because you're taking insulin, and many people think that without carbohydrates your blood sugar will go low. But the deal is you take just enough insulin to get through the day without your blood sugar going high or low. So you don't take massive amounts of insulin. You take small amounts of insulin so that your blood sugar doesn't go low, so you don't have to have carbohydrates. Now, we're lucky right now because we have, I'm a little bit nervous, so my blood sugar went up a little bit. It's 112. But, we have CGMs, and I don't know if you can see my line, but look at that beautiful straight line. We have CGMs, and we can keep track of our blood sugars, and we can know whether, now, just because I'm not eating carbs, I do eat meat and eggs and animal products, so that I keep my blood sugars very stable, and you do still need insulin even though you are only eating protein and fat. I don't need to count carbs because I don't eat carbs, but proteins do raise your blood sugar. Any kind of food will raise your blood sugar. Okay, let's see. All right, that was number 4, number 4 myth. Type 1 diabetics need carbohydrates to grow healthily. No, they don't. 87. Awesome. Number 5. Myth number 5. Type 1 diabetes cannot be prevented. Okay, so let's see if I read this. Okay, I had mine checked recently for the first time, and it was 5.3 after being carnivore had to be much higher. Awesome. Okay. Now, if you're on here, you can read each other's comments, I think. It's like they're very difficult to read. And on YouTube, they come up for a second and then they disappeared. So I think you guys can see each other's comments. Okay, so I've written down several ways that possibly you could prevent type 1 diabetes. So say you're an adult and you have type 1 diabetes and you've heard that you can inherit it. Now, I have 3 kids. None of them have type 1 diabetes. None of their kids have type 1 diabetes. Nobody has inherited it. But I do know families who have either, I know a family who has 2 siblings with type 1 diabetes. This is not common, but it does happen. So it can run in families. Now, in my case, there was not that we know of any relatives of mine being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at any time, but it also can be in families. Me? My daughter? No. Okay, so if you want to make sure that your kids aren't diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, these are just some things that I've figured out that you could possibly do, but I'm not recommending them because they're all a lot of trouble and very difficult. And I don't even know if they would work. But if they would, this is what I would do if it was my child that I was trying to protect. Reduce medications used in childhood, number 1. Number 2, put your children on a meat-based diet. Number 3, avoid sugar and grains, especially gluten. Number 4, if diagnosed, immediately go on a carnivore diet. And number 5, get plenty of sunshine. Those are just my ideas and not recommendations. Number 6, I'll repeat, type 1 diabetes cannot be prevented. That was number 5, the myth, number 5. Number 6 myth is the cure of type 1 diabetes is right around the corner. Now, this is what my parents were told when I was diagnosed at 16 in 1971. Oh, there'll be a cure in less than 5 years. Well, come to find out, there hasn't been a cure, and they're still telling people that when they're diagnosed. Oh, there'll be a cure soon. Now, there have been attempts. There's a lot of attempts at cures, and there recently has been one called the Eledon trial, and it looks pretty promising, I have to say. There's 12 people that were in this trial, and they all don't have to take insulin anymore. The problem with this trial is it's a very small trial. Number 1, it's not FDA approved. That doesn't bother me. It involves cadaver beta cells, which means that somebody has to die and you have to get their dead person's beta cells. It also includes a drug that you have to take, that you have to go to a certain hospital. This one happens to be in Chicago, and you have to get a transfusion every 3 weeks. So if you live far away, you have to take an airplane every 3 weeks to get your infusion. I don't know, that seems pretty complicated, but they've learned a lot from this study, and maybe that's going to happen. I'm not against it. In my opinion, I would rather work towards healing. I would rather that the research that all these foundations are doing and spend the money that they're spending on cures would be reallocated to research on healing. How can we heal? There has been some evidence that beta cells, the insulin producing cells in the pancreas, can be regenerated after they've been killed. Thing is, most type 1 diabetics still produce a very, very small amount of insulin. So they seem to have some beta cells still alive. So if we could figure out how to heal the autoimmune attack, or whatever, clean out whatever is attacking these beta cells, I think that's where our money should be going. That's just my opinion. So, but any of the cures out there going around, there's been a few other ones that have been possibilities. There are just a few people. It would be very hard to replicate it into the thousands, millions of people in the world with type 1 diabetes. So it's a ways away. We'll see. And I still would rather it be a healing. So that's number 6. The cure of type 1 diabetes is right around the corner. Okay, number 7. Myth number 7. Now, I just came up with this, so I'm sorry if it offends anybody. People with type 1 diabetes are sickly and often hospitalized. Okay. Is that question to me? Where am I? Are you saying that because you don't see my cast iron skillets behind me? I'm at my son's house. And he lives in Greenwood Lake, New York. And that's where I am. I'm at his house. So no frying pans behind me. Well, my country is the U.S. And I'm in New York State right now. I live in Maine, though. Okay, number 7. People with type 1 diabetes are sickly and often hospitalized. I've had type 1 diabetes for 55 years, and I have never had to go to the hospital because of a blood sugar. I've never had to have I've never had an ambulance called because of my blood sugar or my diabetes. And there's many people like me. Just because you have type 1 diabetes, if you take really good care of yourself, you're not sickly, you're very healthy. And some of the most healthy people I know have type 1 diabetes. I am pretty healthy. I'll be 72 in July, which is next month. That's my birthday month. And I've never been hospitalized because of type 1 diabetes. So, that is the... Oh, where are you? It's midnight. Cool. So, just wanted to say thank you for tuning in today. I really appreciate you tuning in and doing, putting the comments in. And if you could, anybody who watches this later, if you could like the video and then maybe share it with other people that you know that you think might be interested, because that would really help my channel. And if you could subscribe to my channel, that would be great too. Every subscription really helps me. And it's going to be July 1st on Wednesday, and every first of the month I start a new group coaching. So I do group coaching by the month with a small group, so you all get personal attention from me We do one Zoom call every week on Thursday nights at 7 Eastern. And if I had a lot of people, I could have another better time for other people if we have more in the group. So that would be awesome. And we also have a WhatsApp group that the whole group would be in, even if they're on two different Zoom times. So we have one Zoom a week with me and the WhatsApp group where we send videos to each other. We talk about our issues or our blood sugars or how much we walked or that kind of thing. And it's all, I like to work with people who are either type 1 diabetics, type 2 diabetics, someone who's just insulin resistant and they're trying to get their blood sugars under better control. That's the people who I think would benefit from being in my group. So if you are interested in the group, let me know. You can either DM me here, message me in a comment here on YouTube or on Instagram or Facebook. Now here I'm Brisket Boomers. On Instagram and Facebook, I am Amy Fields Perrin. It's AIMEE FIELDS PERRIN. And you can DM me on Instagram or message me on Facebook Messenger. And I'll tell you what you need to know about the group. And the first is coming up Wednesday, so I need to hear from you before then. Alrighty. Is there anything else anybody needs to know? Because I think we're just about finished, and I really appreciate all of you. And I hope everybody has a great, great weekend. Thank you. Yes. Alrighty. Thank you and good night.